is what we call the big rocks. Has anybody ever heard of that little exercise where the college professor, he put a glass container on the table, and then he had a bag of big rocks and a bag of small rocks or pebbles and a bag of sand, and he said, so how much of everything can I get in here? So if I start with the sand and I pour sand in, can I get the whole bag of sand in there? Yes. Can I get the whole bag of pebbles to go in there? Yes. Now, can I get the big rocks in there? No, they won't fit. There's not, because the sand and pebbles are up to here, right? So then he puts that aside and he gets a new jar with new things and goes, how about if we do it the other way around? How about we put the big rocks in? Now, is there room for anything else? Yes, let's put the pebbles in. Okay, let's put the pebbles in. And sure enough, the pebbles all fall between the rocks. And then it says, how about the sand? Can we put the sand in? Yeah, I think the sand can fit in there. And sure enough, the entire bag of sand fits in there. And then he says, do you think it's full? Huh?
No.
What else can go in there?
I think they put water in.
Oh, I thought it was gin. No.
Yeah,
Yes, he takes an entire bucket of water and can now still put, in other words, between the sand is enough space to fill in the water. However, he couldn't get it in when you did it the other way around. How does this relate to real estate in your life, in business?
Do the most important things first.
If you don't do your 3 rocks, if you don't focus on your 3 rocks, right, you will fill your container with all this other stuff going to the laundry, going to the and your 3 rocks won't fit into your day. So we believe that focusing on 3 things is crucial to help get new agents started. Any questions on that? All right. What's the one thing you can do right now that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? How about earn a lot of money? If you brought in a couple of deals, it would make other things easier, wouldn't it? So getting your business going and getting real estate activity going, that's the one thing that you can do to make your life easier. So, where are we back to this? What am I supposed to talk about here? All right, so when we look at this activity list, which activities do you think 20% of the agents use as their big rocks?
Leads.
Right here, right? 1, 2, 3. And they gotta fit a 4th one in there. Because truth is, if you don't know your inventory, it's difficult to be a good realtor. So you gotta also learn your inventory. But can you fit learning the inventory in? Yeah, you bet you can, right? It's this stuff that you wanna focus on.
Yeah.
Those are the big rocks, right? Okay, so before we go to our 411, there's a 411 in your thing. I've got a different document for you. And guys, on Zoom, this is a GPS, and I will draw it on the board for you so that you can understand what it is we're talking about. And it's really a way, I find this tool very helpful to help you identify your big rocks. Okay. We call this a GPS because it's for 1 goal, 3 priorities, and 5 strategies. It used to be called the 135, and then the initials GPS came to mean a directional system, right? So how perfect is that? This is our GPS, and for everybody here, can they see this? So it's 1 goal, then it's number 2 is 3 priorities, and then the 3rd point is under each priority you can have up to 5 strategies. So, your one goal, and by the way, the more you make these quantifiable numbers, the more better, right? Because now you can be accountable to yourself and say, well, did I do this number? Right? Because we're going to break those numbers down. So what we say is your one goal. If your one goal is to earn $100,000, then you'd put up here, earn $100,000 and do 14 transactions. Or by doing 14 transactions. So that also would go into your 411. That is your goal. That is one of the ones in your goal. Right? So $100,000, 14 transactions. And now you get to ask yourself, what are my big rocks for getting this done? What are the 3 things I am going to focus on to build my business? And the first one I would recommend that you put in here is that you grow your database to, and put in a number. It depends on how big your database is now. If you can double it, that would be great. If you've got 300 names, you should have 600 in there by the end of the year. What do you want to grow your database to?
Over 1,000.
Great. Can you do that in a year?
Mm-hmm.
What's your database now?
187, but that's not even a portion of the people that I get in contact with on a regular basis.
Great. So pick the number that feels realistic to you. And then stretch it. Right? Back to let's stretch ourselves. So I think 1,000 is a stretch, and I think that's great. That's awesome for you. It's feasible, but it's stretching. Because we're going to divide it into weeks, right? What does that mean every week? That's what we're going to do with our 411 next. So your database. Now, what are you going to do if your number 3 item here is database, right?
You take out your personal
Well,
contacts.
you're going to set it up on command, aren't you?
Personal contacts in your database.
My phone lost most of my, like half of my contacts.
Yeah, what's your question? Share
Well, on the database, I'm still working on mine, and that is, do you consider personal contacts part of your database? Personal contacts like other realtors, people that may not be buying from you, family members. That kind of
Why
thing.
wouldn't family members buy from you?
Well, certain family members.
Actually, all your family members. You can help all your family members. We had this wonderful story from a bold coach who came in and she said, after 22 years, my sister finally said she'd use me as her realtor. 22 years she was in business. She's a bold coach. She has a team. She's an award winner. She's a big realtor in her town. The sister finally used her, and the sister, when she was done with the transaction, said, I have to tell you something. I had no idea you were such a pro. I thought I always think of you as my little sister. And you know what? She realized, hello, she didn't put her on her database, and she wasn't sending her emails and her newsletter and her information, inviting her to events, letting her see that she's a professional. So yes, you need to put your mother and your auntie and your cousins and all of that on there. And the people who are in other locales, those are the ones that when it's time to make your touch, you call them up and you say, I want you to know that I can help you with real estate. I can find you an awesome agent. Or if you have a neighbor who's looking for an agent, let me know. It's going to help me too, by the way. But let me know, because we're the biggest real estate company at this point, and I can find you an awesome agent. And you get a referral fee, right? So that's why everybody on your database is a valid name. Realtors, you want to tag them separately, and it's up to you whether you include them in your marketing materials or not. other realtors send me their stuff once I've signed up for it or something, they put me on. It kind of lets you know that other realtors are doing business, they're busy, they're active, and nobody goes around and copies each other's newsletters, believe me, we don't do that. So our answer to your question is get your entire phone contact list into Command, and then you will start going name by name, and you will tag them, and you can tag it realtor and sphere of influence, and you can tag your family and sphere of influence, right? And now you can communicate just with your family if you wanted to, or you could communicate just with those realtors that are signed up with you. Does that make sense? And then there's the wonderful one, we all have numbers in our phone that have no names to them, right? And I love those. Those are an opportunity for a really funny phone call, because you call people up and you say, hi, so this is Marianne Haller, I'm with Keller Williams, and I'm just here cleaning up my contacts in my phone, and I came across your phone number and I don't know who I'm calling. What's your name? And obviously, this is not a hoaxy call, because I've just given you my name, I've
Right.
introduced myself, you're in my phone, and you might know me, and you might go, Marianne, this is Jim, and I'm going, oh my God, Jim who, and then we have this funny conversation, or we end up saying, I don't know how my number got into your phone. Well, tell me what you do. Maybe we know each other somehow, you just don't know who I am without looking at me or
Yeah.
something, Give me your email and I'll send you a picture of myself. I mean, it could just be this wonderful, delightful, okay, thanks a lot. Well, I'm a realtor if you ever need any,
Could be a wrong number that turns into a sale.
like that. You just never know, right? So there's a script for everything. So that's why we say put everything from your phone into your database in Command and start working it there,
Yeah.
right? You're just gonna go down the list and start working your database. So this would be, what do you have to do? Well, and get them all in, and then you want to start setting them up on a campaign, right? And your campaign, by the way, so remember the other day I set my husband up for a campaign, and I now have it in my tasks. The task said, call husband. It's right there, right? So that's exactly what would happen. And when you do it one at a time like that, as opposed to putting everybody into the campaign on the same day, if you do that, you have 500 people to call in one day. That becomes daunting. Whereas if you do it, 10 at a time, you're gonna get 10 phone call tasks every day. See how that works? So it kind of makes sense to just enter them all, then you tag them, and then you can start putting them on a drip campaign. So that would be the stuff here. Enter them from your phone, put them on a campaign, learn the Command materials so that I know what I'm sending them, right? And can modify it or do whatever I want to do to it. Here's a great one. Campaigns in Command have emails, and this is a cheap way to communicate with people. So use those emails, and every month, the realtors, escrow companies send us these fantastic graphics of how the market is doing here. You can just take that PDF, you can just take that screenshot, I take screenshots, or actually they include a PDF of the flyer that they've got there. You can take that, upload it into the email, and now your email's got this pretty graphic about how the market did in February in Maui. It's like, that takes 15 minutes. You can set yourself up so that there's a task that says, set up your email, right? You can build a reminder into the campaign that tells you to go into the campaign and set up the email for the month. How hard is that? Okay? You might want to write a little blurb about Whale Day Parade, right? Whatever it is. So feeding your database and then growing it, right? So that's the other one. How do you grow your database? Well, that becomes the next one. For many of you, open house would be another one here, right? Doing as many open houses as possible and maximizing them. So It's learning everything there is to know about open houses, going to Lee Potts's open house class, learning how to find all the agents in the company who have listings and how to easily do that. That's in Paragon. Learning your open house scripts, getting all your materials together, making sure you have open house signs, blah, 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 blah. And then the last one might be perfect my script so that I get to 90% collection of contact information at my open house. I want 90% of the people to sign in. How do I get there? In order to figure that out, you need to track, right? Does this make sense? So you're going to take open house here, and you're going to delineate the things that you're going to do, the key things that you're going to do to perfect your open house. And then what's a third rock you might be able to identify? This varies tremendously. Some people use social media here. So if they're going to do social media, I'm going to get on their case and say, okay, I want you to track how many hours you spent on social media. Did you farm people's phone numbers out of social media, and did you add them to your database? Right? Because you can do that. One name at a time, you can go in and see if people have their emails or phone numbers listed in Facebook, for instance, right? So social media could be one. Other people do cold calling, right? Somebody else might do door knocking. Somebody else might do, what else? What else could we do here?
Could be joining some sort of club or like the gym or something like that where we have more exposure, being more visible, I guess is what I think of.
Right, so social events, we recommend you do that anyway. Those things do take time, but for sure if you belong to a church or religious organization that has a large membership, how can you participate there in a bigger way to have a bigger visibility? And maybe if there's a newsletter that you are now entitled to put your business card into that newsletter, right?
Yeah, one of the ways in that, for me, because I personalize that, I go to a local church here, is to be part of a small group. So this small group that meets every week, it's like a sphere of influence right there.
So that is what we call this, by the way. Our database becomes our sphere of influence, right? How many people going out can we influence? And
You guys are warriors. Awesome.
yeah.
Right.
You got the vaccine for the virus? I heard you had the vaccine.
Yeah, only the rich have it.
Okay.
So I can't share it with you.
Okay,
But don't worry.
all right.
You guys will have it soon.
All right, thanks, Todd.
You're practicing your Donald Trump routine.
Donald Trump
Yes,
routine.
that's it. Thank you. Cold calling could be here, right? Door knocking. Door knocking. Do you see? You could do farming. If you have money and you can afford to farm, let's say, a condo complex. Now you can actually also, slowly but surely, get phone numbers for those condos. You could do it buying them 10 per day, right? You go into that white page, not white pages, there's a different one that's actually better. Ugh, can't remember the name of it. Your coach will be able to tell you. I'll get it from Nicole. That, you know, you look up 10 phone numbers in a day and you make 10 calls to people that you've been sending cards to. That is far more effective than just sending cards. Cards, by the way, if you're going to farming is a long-term activity. This is going to take months to have any results. Whereas phone calling, your database, and doing open house is the most immediate thing you can do, as well as door knocking, right? All right, so you get the idea. This is, these are your 3 rocks. You need to identify what are the things you're going to focus on to get yourself going. And we try to recommend those things that are least costly, right? We want you to lead with revenue, not with expense. So back to, that's why we do lead generating activities. So now you go on to your next page in your, or to the page in your, that looks like this, the 411. It should really be called a 114. It's backwards. It's 4 down here, and then 1 monthly goal and 1 annual goal, right? So it got turned into a 411. I guess they didn't like the alliteration of 114. So anyway, so we simply restate our annual goal. What's our annual goal? 14 transactions, $100,000, right? What's my monthly goal? Well, if I want 14 transactions in a year, how many do I need a month? And by the way, I'm taking a month off. And are we counting from now until next March, or are we counting from now until December? I would suggest you give yourself a full year. So if you want to take 4 weeks off a year, then it's 14 divided by 11. How many is that? Let's see here. 14 divided by 11 is 2.3 a month. So that probably means 1 transaction a month, and every 3 months it's 2. Does that make sense? Because you can't do, right? It's either that or 1 transaction every 3.5 weeks, something like that. Because we're only going to have 46 weeks. There's holidays and whatnot. You're confused.
No.
The math?
Yeah.
14 divided by 11 months, is 1.3.
2.3 though.
No, 1.3.
Oh, 1.3.
1.3.
Okay.
So now your monthly goal would be 1.3 sales or 1 closing, right? And then next month might be 2. And then the next month, I mean, you gotta figure that out, which months are which way. The second thing is to consider, it's March, what's the date, 17th today? It's St. Patty's Day,
Yep.
and I didn't wear green.
So
It
I
is.
forgot to put up my corned beef.
Oh my gosh, happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. It's half the month is through, so we're not gonna do a transaction this month probably. So we might say none this month, and now we go to 10 months. Now we gotta do 14 transactions in 10 months. See where I'm going?
Yeah.
You gotta adjust like that. And then what else are you doing for the month? Well, I'm going to contact 100 people on my database, or 150 people on my database. I'm going to do 4 open houses a week, or 10 for the month, or 20 for the month, right? What's your goal for the month in order to achieve your 3 big rocks? And then, how are you gonna break those down for the week? Now, here's the interesting thing. It probably takes you 2 appointments to get 1 listing. It's probably gonna take you 3 appointments, maybe even 4, to get a buyer sale. So how many appointments do you think you need every week in order to have a closing a month? If 2 listing appointments lead to a closing, I need 2 listing appointments, right? And if I add 3 buyer appointments or 2 buyer appointments, now I should get a buyer. Do you see where I'm going? So you could alternate it. Listing appointment, buyer appointment, listing appointment, buyer appointment. And if this week goes by and you didn't get that appointment, you need to cross out the one here and put 2. Right? So we can't just not achieve our goals. We need to move them forward when they don't happen. And the same thing is true for the month. If you didn't get a closing for the month, then next month has got to be 2, or maybe even 3 if you were at 2 next month. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the value of this, by filling this out and putting things in here, so this week I want to perfect my listing presentation. And then I'm going to practice my listing presentation. And over here I'm going to perfect my buyer's presentation. And I'm going to practice my buyer's presentation. because that's next on that list, right, is doing those presentations. That's what you want appointments for. You might want to add script practice, 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours of script practice a week. This is not a to-do list of your Menini stuff, of your 80%. This is only a to-do list of your 20%. Okay? What doesn't go on here is, oh, I need to go and check escrow on this transaction and that transaction if you've got deals going. No. This is your lead generating sheet. And the best thing to do is to fill this out and to pin it in front of your desk, wherever it is you work regularly, and here's the value of it. Have you ever sat down at your desk and you go, oh my God, what do I have to do today? Like it's kind of a blur and you're just not even, like where do I even start? When you look at this sheet, it tells you where to start, right? And that goes back to one of the other sessions where we talked about the time you choose to do what you have to do. We recommend the mornings, because if you don't do it in the mornings, it's much harder to get it up to do it in the afternoon. Just like eat the what's it called? Eat the something or other. Just eat it, the ugly thing, just eat it.
Eat the most nutritious. Right?
Something nutritious. A worm is very nutritious. I have the book at home, I have to go look at it. Yeah, the point is just eat that pill and let's go and do it.
You know, it's funny because my wife and I have a whole bunch of birds that come into our area, and we buy the Costco bags of birdseed. And when I open up the drapes, they're right there first thing in the morning, and they are ready to eat. That's their priority. You know, they show up just as soon as it's daylight. You know?
You've trained them. You've trained them. Okay, so the final thing I just want to talk about is setting an affirmation. And I don't want to take a lot of time here, but setting an affirmation for yourself that has meaning for you so that you remind yourself. Real estate, unfortunately, is a repetitive and often not so exciting business. Making a lot of phone calls, right? Doing your database entry is not what you thought you would be doing. That's not why you got into this business, right? Mm-hmm. You got into this business to help people buy and sell real estate and to be out there working with people. That's the fun part. We all get that, but you don't get to do that if you don't do this part. So how do we motivate ourselves? And we ask you to, or encourage you to write an affirmation from that sheet we did with the 5 bubbles that you filled out that talks about why you're doing this. What's the big life that you're trying to attain? So if you did something like, I'm making this call to provide for my mom by paying off her house because she provided for me and I want to show her I appreciate her. Why are you making these calls, right? Every morning, remind yourself. And pretty soon we're going to have a vision boarding session. So I'm telling you, being principal broker and lead productivity coach was a tough job. And I would look up at my bulletin board and there's a picture of my son because I put him through school. And then there was a picture of the Eiffel Tower. And darn if I wasn't going to go to Paris. And you know what? I did. I went to Paris. Like, it just kind of, my girlfriend wrote me and said, let's go to Paris. And I'm like, what? I can't go to Paris. She goes, yes, you can. I go, no. She goes, yes, you can. And I booked the flight. And I went to Paris 6 months later. So I set a goal, is what I'm trying to say. And I put it there in front of me all the time. So we are going to encourage you to do a vision board to go along with, right? You're going to have a picture of your parents and happy, and if you're paying off a mortgage, you're going to have a big dollar bill handing it to the bank and paying that off and tearing your mortgage in half. So what is your affirmation? Write something for yourself that ties into your deep why and helps you remember it daily. And that's how you get the power of that exercise working for you. Because we put it over here. We put it in the back of our minds. It's not that we forget. It's just that it's not foremost in our minds. to make you sit down and make these phone calls and do this computer work. Just take it from us. It's what it takes. There's all sorts of cute stories about top agents who had assistants, and the assistant would literally, if the agent went out to get water, the assistant gave her 3 minutes, and then she'd drag her back into her office and shut the door. And make a sign that says, "Do not disturb, I'm lead generating," and stick it on the wall, on the door, wherever you are. Get your family, if you're working at home, get your family to support you, and not disturb you, because just, you get disturbed, you're gonna get sidetracked, and before you know it, half an hour's gone by, right? I have to shut the door because the dog keeps coming in. All right, awesome. Okay, so we've gone over a couple of minutes, so, the last thing we're supposed to do is pick an accountability partner. So, there's so many fewer agents here today, but we want to encourage you to pick an accountability partner. Somebody that you can work with, that you can do scripts with, that you can practice your scripts with, somebody you can call on when you don't get something, and, hey, what are you doing about this? How are you doing with that? Just somebody to check in with. So, from just the people who are here and the people who are over on the other islands, do you want to pair up? Do you want to choose somebody?
Sure.
You want to exchange phone numbers? Yeah? That would be great.
Jim, I think I remember.
What do we, I'm sorry, I'm back.
Well, where we're at? We're-
We are just picking accountability partners.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
you guys, yeah? Just
Either way.
exchange numbers and
Okay.
pick a time and
I'll
date
just type my name in
when
there.
you can call each other, like that's when you're gonna check in with each other on a regular basis. You can always make more appointments, but it's a great way to have somebody, that, you can call and go, hey, I don't get this, what do I do here? Or I'm stuck, or whatever. 'Cause sometimes we're afraid to call our coaches.
I'm Anne Marie.
Morgan,
Nice to meet you. What's your number?
Haley, 214.
Okay.
5.
What else?
Take
If
a
not,
photo.
just-
That's Anne.
Nice.
Right.
That's smart.
Wanted to send you
Adding
a
a
text
picture
there?
to the name.
I
That's
like
smart.
that.
I actually started, I haven't made any contact, but I was actually talking to Anthony as well, who's in this group, but he hasn't been here, so.
I like
That's, I don't think you can have too many accountability
know.
partners.
Yeah. I will tell you
KW
before
is
Christmas hour,
my
9,
accountability
9
partner.
is good, 9,
Yeah.
5-ish,
What's your
anything
last
like
name?
that. After that, no guarantee. What, I'm sorry?
What's your last name?
Tom Aiden, THOMASIA.
God, it's so nice to meet a community of people that are
Uh,
growing,
Yeah,
you know?
I was, when I was looking over the materials, trying to decide what company to join, one of the things I noticed was the reason why Keller Williams agents
So in future, you
stayed
guys, if you have your
was
Kelly app,
because of the culture.
Right.
your Kelly app has a QR code. One of you scans the QR code and you've traded each other's numbers.
Oh,
Okay,
I
in
haven't got
future.
to Kelly yet.
Your Kelly app will do this for you. It's
You use
pretty
Kelly?
awesome.
They do.
See, I gotta type that one.
And Kelly, at this point, you can see your entire database from Command on Kelly. Everything from Command is available on Kelly. It's pretty amazing. So much technology to study over these next few weeks. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Because this is the lifeblood of your business right here. And we are very fortunate to be a part of this brand new system.
Yeah.
So, all right. So accountable people achieve results others can only dream of. Absolutely true.
Okay.
And just any ahas today? Has your thinking changed any? Oh, no, that's all right. Where'd you want to listen from?
How long are you guys going till today anyways?
12:30.
Right on. You guys are Warriors.
I heard you're catering lunch for us today here.
You're wrong. Todd is officially on super save mode at this point, because
Okay.
he knows so long. I
Yeah.
highly suggest keep
Yeah,
all expenses down as best possible.
Yeah.
Be ahead of the game on this one.
yeah, no, that's
I just
That's
got an
critical.
appointment.
That
You got an appointment.
is awesome.
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 Okay.
Commercial.
Commercial.
You guys
okay.
go. Keep it up.
Okay.
Are you,
awesome.
are you doing commercial?
So can we
all
not,
the time,
hello,
or-
Jim? Jim?
I'm
no,
sorry.
That's all right.
I wanted to find my expert commercial person to refer
Yep,
to.
you bet. So tell me your ahas. Any ahas from today? Has your thinking changed? What ideas or mindsets were new?
It's simplified, like, just was having a goal, I'm good at setting goals. I'm not, what I haven't done is done the step-by-step behavior to achieve the goals. And I usually achieve my goals, but I have no idea how it happened. And, instead of it being kind of this thing out there, this amorphous thing, it's like, oh, I only have to do 2 transactions a month, and I'll achieve my goal. Awesome.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the nice things about our business. It reduces itself to numbers pretty easily.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then
It's not as overwhelming.
that goes further, right? How many, you will be able to track, how many appointments do I need to get a listing or a buyer? Like, how many appointments does it take me? But you will only know that if you track your numbers, right? So tracking our numbers becomes important. And the other one is, how many contacts do I need to make in order to get an appointment? And if it took you 147 contacts to make an appointment, you go, I wanna do better than that. And you start getting better at asking for the appointment. What else?
I think writing it down
Writing it down.
is key for me. But writing it down in small sections because I can see the whole picture. And sometimes that can be overwhelming to see the whole picture rather than
Yeah.
seeing all the little pieces that make the whole picture
Yeah.
come together.
I get overwhelmed when I look at 14 transactions in a year.
Yeah.
But if I say one, oh yeah, okay, I can do one. I can do 2 appointments this month or 3 appointments this month. Okay, I can do that, but I can't do 30 or
Yeah.
40, right? Yeah. Good point. I've done a lot of plans for different companies and different businesses. 2 pages. It's down to 2 pages. I mean, it's so simplified. It's pretty amazing, right? To just have your plan on 2 pages. And by the way, can you do this for something personal or for something other? Could you take your marketing, if you end up with money to spare and you're gonna do a marketing campaign, could you do a 135 just for your marketing? You could, right? How am I gonna spend my marketing? So that you stay focused on what you wanna spend it on. How will your behaviors be different going forward? What actions will you take going forward? Anything come up?
I'm gonna document everything, like my appointments, my,
Track, you mean?
my tracking.
Yeah. Yeah, go into that tracker. It's
I think
easy
giving
to
us
use.
a finite amount of time to do the 10 calls or to do in this hour I'm going to do X and do it in that hour so I can get to that 20% work but 80% result.
No, that is your 20%. Making those phone calls is your 20%.
Right,
Right.
but I don't wanna take all day to do
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, you should, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
give yourself an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is to make your contacts, your calls, all your database work, your
Yeah.
handwritten cards, all of that.
Yeah, so then I can go out and play and do the social part
That's
of
correct.
the meeting.
Yeah, or work on your transactions when you've got them, right? Awesome, awesome, okay. And keep in mind that keeping that 411 in front of you is really important, right? If you've got it right there in front of you, we might not notice it every day, but if you start using it and go, what am I supposed to do today? Oh my God, I'm behind, I need an appointment, I need 2 appointments this week. And all of a sudden you can say to yourself, what do I need to do to get 2 appointments this week? What do I need to do to get 2 appointments this week? It's as simple as that. Because that adds urgency, doesn't it? All of a sudden you start thinking differently, you go, oh my God, I need 2 appointments this week. What am I gonna do to get 2 appointments this week? And by the way, appointments with your friends who you asked to practice your presentations to count. Why do they count?
With no lead to other things in the future.
That's correct. Your friends are gonna be impressed, because you're not gonna go unprepared. You're gonna be prepared, and they're gonna be impressed. They're gonna go, wow, Morgan, you're really into this. And you go, you bet I'm taking it seriously. Do you know anybody who needs to do real estate? Well, actually, you know. And you add them to your database, and you keep in touch, right? And they get to see, wow, my friend Morgan's really doing it. So here, use him. All right. And that takes us to, here's the goals that we set for you, right? Is what we call our daily 10-4. And our daily 10-4 says, add 10 contacts to your database a day, hold 10 conversations a day, and I bet you do that. You just don't even know it. And then write 10 handwritten notes and review or preview 10 properties. And you can do that either on the internet or by going to Caravan or go to some open houses, however you want to do it. The more obviously you see, the better. So that's our daily 10-4. And on your 411, you would want to write whatever the number is that you feel comfortable with. Make 50 calls this week. Right? So it's 1 closing, 2 appointments, and 50 contacts. That's what your 411 would say. By the way, we didn't just pick those numbers out of the air. These numbers bring agents on average across the whole company to capping. You want to get to capping. The point is you want to get to capping sooner than the end of your year. This just brings you to capping in a year. So we all want to cap before our year anniversary, right? So ultimately, you're going to want to actually increase these numbers to get yourself to capping sooner. Because then you're at 100% and got a nice raise going there.
I wanted to get clarification on, did you say is the capping on a calendar year for everybody, or is it?
No, it's on your anniversary
Okay.
year, because it's individual. Alrighty, so now we are going to take some time to do our scripts. So let's take a 5-minute break. Everybody, take a moment, get a breath of fresh air, and I am going to log that computer into Zoom so that you can see out. And that way I can also, then when we get to contracts, I can also have you see the contract more easily.
Is there a 3-hole punch that we could?
Question about command
Yeah, it's in the
contact.
office.
Pardon me?
Hi, this is Catherine. I have a quick question about command contact.
You
So
bet.
if you're working, for example, with a husband and a wife, and they're in your command as 2 separate contacts, how does that work? Can you join them? Do you put them in as just 1 contact? And then your notes are all consistent, or?
I'm sorry, I missed the very beginning. How do you have 2? They're buying a house together or something?
Yeah, so if you're working with a husband and a wife, for
Oh.
example, and they're looking to purchase a home and you have them in command as 2 separate contacts.
Yeah, I would merge them.
Fine, that's
Yeah, you need to merge them. So decide which one is the lead, and you add, because you can add a husband or wife, right? You can add other people into a contact, and that way all of your correspondence is separately. You can still leave them as 2 contacts so that your communications, like your emails or whatever, go to both emails. Although I don't know that off of the top of my head. It could be that, I don't know if the additional persons in a contact can also be set to receive emails and calls and such like that. I would, to be safe, I would leave them a separate contact just for that purpose, but you know that you're keeping all of your records under the wife.
great, thank you.
And then you run the opportunity, when they're gonna go buy something, you run it under the wife.
Okay, great,
You bet.
thank you.
You bet. All right, I'm gonna put this on. I'm gonna mute, because I'm gonna mute this because it's gonna get really, it doesn't like 2 Zooms open at the same time, so it's gonna sound funny. see this doesn't like this. I'm afraid that if I. I'm afraid in order to do this. This is weird. I have to log out. So you might have to log in again.